Evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Next Evermore podcast. It's episode 6. As you can see, I'm your host, Chris, and I'm joined by the usual face of James Lynch. And we'll go on stateside to introduce Adam Beckett to the first ever Evermore on your debut, mate. How are you, lads?
Doing great. Happy to be here.
Very well, mate. Very well. How are you, pal?
Very good, very good. As you can see, we're one body light. The blue tick man is having a rest because he does about 400 podcasts a week. There's little Dan Wales, bless him. So he's resting those weary legs. We are expecting the Welsh wizard to drop in at any moment in diaries. So we will certainly be getting stuck into everything that is Newcastle United, because yet again, lads, it has been a very up and down week for Newcastle United. So without further ado, let's get stuck into tonight's topics. And I'm going to depress all of you if you've had a really nice weekend, and bar the football, obviously, and you've been in a good mood today, because it's time to take you back to Saturday and Watford at home. Now, coming to you on this first, Adam, a crap result, really, mate. A draw. In your opinion, mate, was it a point gained or 2 points lost, mate?
Well, it was undoubtedly 2 points lost. Newcastle are running out of opportunities to pick up points against the teams around them, which you would think is our best chance of picking up points. I know we've now played everybody around us and obviously only beaten Burnley. And we've played them all at home, which, again, you think would be an advantage for us playing at home versus playing away. But maybe that's not going to be the case this year if we are going to get out of this scrap. Or finish top of the bottom four, as it looks like it's going to be, then we're going to have to beat these teams away. And maybe that's just how we're going to have to do it this year. Obviously, the Watford opportunity has been and gone, both home and away now. It's hard to think that we can stay up, having not beaten Watford home or away this year, given how poor they are. And apart from anything else, we just needed to create a bit of momentum. I mean, I know that the Cambridge game should have been an opportunity to create some momentum. I'm still not quite sure what happened that day. It might have just been one of those 1 in a million situations where we didn't win. But again, the Watford game would have created a lot of momentum on the pitch, but equally as important, probably it would have created a little bit more momentum off the pitch in the transfer market. I can imagine if you were a transfer target of Newcastle looking at the results on Saturday night, it would have made a great deal of difference to the club's pursuit of players, I think, had they been 17th and not 19th. You know, being above that dotted line, even only for a week or two, I think would have made a massive difference to everybody at the club, from the owners to the manager to the players, and frankly to the prospective players that may or may not be coming in over the next couple of weeks. So huge opportunity lost. And my big fear now is that we're just running out of opportunities.
It's interesting. James said something really similar on last week's episode as well, where I think you and I got into it, James, didn't you, in terms of whether you thought this would affect players wanting to come to the club or not. I tend to decide on exactly what Adam's saying there as well. I mean, I think you're losing games like Cambridge, losing against teams like Watford, who, let's face it, weren't great. I think we had about 60% possession, lads, in the game, I think, didn't we? Looking back at it. You know, are you on the same side there as Adam, James? Do you think this is going to affect us? I know you said last week it probably wouldn't, the Cambridge game. Do you think this is going to, you know, cause more trouble for getting players through the door?
Well, of course it will. It was just a horrible, horrible performance at the end of the day, and it was a hammer blow, wasn't it? It was a sucker punch, that equaliser, but it was on the cards. You could see it coming a mile off. We just didn't kill the game off, and we were punished for it, and deservedly so. But when you're down the bottom like we are and defend the way we do, it was no surprise, really. And I said on last week's show, I thought it would be a draw. We are a team of losers right now, and we have absolutely no confidence. We've got no belief in ourselves. And it looks like there are a lot of players that have just pretty much thrown the towel in now. I thought Lascelles was absolutely shocking. Shelvey and Longstaff were woeful. Maximin was pretty terrible, apart from his wonder goal. And it does look like right now, if Maxi doesn't do that in games, we're done for with Wilson missing. I can't see Chris Wood scoring 10 goals between now and the end of the season. And there has been a lot of talk about dropping Maximin now, especially after his performance against Watford. And, you know, I can't understand the argument to a point. But if you do that, then, well, who's going to score goals? I can't think of anybody right now who is contributing like what he is in the goal scoring department. But yeah, the sum up, very, very frustrating. If you can't beat a team at home who's lost their last 7 games, then you've got no chance, have you?
I totally agree, mate. I think what disappointed me the most, I mean, there was a couple of positives out of the game. I think one for me was to see Paul Dummett back. He's been out for so long, coming back into the team. And the sad reality is for that defence as well, Kieran Trippier aside, maybe, Dummett was the one shouting at them. He was the one pulling them a line. He was the one telling them where to stand and where to go. He looked twice the captain Jamal Lascelles did, in my opinion. But I know we're going to get stuck into Eddie Howe in a minute. Di's on his way to join us. He's just messaged in the group there. And he's got a real bee in his bonnet about Eddie Howe. And I think, he thinks he's getting a bit of a free pass, I think. But I think it was weekend game management as well by Eddie Howe that when you look at the equaliser, Dummett is done really when the cross comes in. The lad hadn't played since the last game of last season. Eddie Howe and Jason Tyndall, the pair of them are standing there hand in hand like fucking Ant and Dec. Surely they can see that this lad is flagging a bit and he hasn't played for so long. Why is he not making that decision? Adam, what was your take on that? Do you think Eddie Howe's got to take blame for that goal and not making a change?
Yeah, I think he does. And I think he probably knows that. I think he's a smart enough manager to know that he's made a mistake. But it wasn't the only one. I mean, I think the lineup itself, like James said, there was some issues with that starting 11. Having both Shelvey and Longstaff is really sort of irrelevant when you're playing at home. It doesn't make a lot of sense to have both of them playing, particularly with the role now that Joe Linton seems to be playing. It's a bit like having three defensive midfielders, which is why Chris Wood looks so isolated. But as soon as the goal went in, the whole atmosphere changed watching it on TV. Obviously, I'm sure it was the same in the stadium too. I think the worst thing we did in that game was score when we did. If we had scored about 25 minutes later and had less time to hold on, then it would have made a big impact on the end result. You either needed to score early to create a lot of momentum, or you needed to score late because you knew that as soon as we went 1-0 up, the panic would set in, like it does in almost every game. And Newcastle tend to score first. I think they've scored first in half their games this season and only won one of them, obviously. But Howe did make a mistake. I think he made a mistake by not bringing Almiron or Willock on earlier.
Yeah.
I think he almost brought Willock on about 15 minutes or so before their goal, but for some reason changed his mind, which was stunning to me because you could see both Shelvey and Longstaff were really struggling in the last 10 minutes.
I think he brought Murphy on, didn't he, with 15 minutes ago, and then I think it was Almiron came after. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And I don't know why he changed his mind on Willock. I mean, Willock's got legs, if nothing else, and we needed legs in that midfield for the last 15 minutes or so. The problem with with Dummett is that the only option you really had was Ritchie. You didn't have Jamal Lewis on the bench. It's going to be interesting which one of those starts at the weekend. Will it be Lewis or will it be Dummett? Can you go back to back with Dummett? I don't know. Lewis is obviously coming back from an injury. So if you bring Ritchie on at left back, you create another whole set of problems, in my opinion, because he's such a poor defender, particularly at stopping crosses. So I think Howe did make a mistake overall with how he managed the period between when we scored and when they scored. But, it's not the first time, like I said, we've led in so many games this season and not seen them out. And some of that is on the manager, both the managers, all three of the managers we've had, and some of that is on the players as well.
Absolutely. Well, you can see we've been joined by our Welsh wizard there, Di from Amsterdam. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, mate. How are you doing? Sorry I'm late. I've had a nightmare day that I will not bore everyone with, but I apologise.
Well, to be fair, Adam was just telling us about the nightmare day that we all had on Saturday, mate. So I'm going to bring you straight. I'm going to bring you straight in and not baby step you. Adam has just made a really good point there, and it's something that has really been pissing me off for a long time. And James hit a nail on the head before as well. This is a team of losers. The mentality is just they go out to not lose games rather than win games. And the minute a goal goes in, like you say, Adam, instead of pushing forward, they seem to regress and panic almost and think, oh, what do we do? Rather than pushing forward for a second goal. What's your take on that, Di? Did you see that as well on Saturday? And is there any way to fix that for this manager?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's a great point. We've seen it for a long time as well. I think that's a mentality thing that's come through from Steve Bruce. I'm sure. I hope I'm not repeating, but I'm sure I am. But
we haven't got there yet. We're getting there.
I think the big thing for me is in terms of what you can do to change it. I think you've got two options. One of them is probably what's happening at the minute, which isn't working, which is how instills in the players that they do get further up the pitch. They press. And from people I've spoken to at the match, he is shouting that at them. He is trying to get that message across, and it's not happening. That in and of itself is a worry. the second part of that there is, so what happens next? Because it's happened more than once. So what do you do next? For me, the option or the most logical solution would be to go 5 at the back. And I know people would see that as a backward step, but it's not like we're scoring loads of goals with 4 at the back anyway. So I don't think we're detracting too much from our attacking side of things. I hope you haven't got to the point I was going to make about Howe and the comparison with Bruce. So hopefully
we're going to come on that after this, mate. Yeah, we've got some serious detail to go into on that one, mate. So we'll get you involved big time in that.
The final thing there is that if our big thing is we only ever seem to score 1 goal in a game, which I think is what really is happening, then we need to make sure we keep clean sheets, and we're just not doing that. And at the minute, 4 at the back isn't solving that, isn't the solution. So even if it doesn't work, I think it's worth trying 5 at the back just because we're trying something new. And I think he needs to be more proactive in that sense, in my opinion. There's loads of other stuff. Bringing off ASM too late, for example, against Watford, I think was a big hindrance. Not addressing the fact that Chris Wood, I don't blame him for that, but he didn't have a particularly great game. He wasn't great holding the ball up, and anytime he did hold the ball up, there was no one around him. A lot of that isn't Eddie Howe's fault. That's the situational thing. But I feel like if we are going to sit deeper, I don't want to invite that. I don't want that to be our thing, but we need to be proactive in that situation.
Definitely. James, just coming to you on this as well, kind of for the next game. I'm petrified by this. I mean, we're doing a proper match fixture focus, with a Leeds fan on Thursday, Mark and I. So make sure you tune into the channel, guys. But just to bring you in, James, on that one, Leeds are a high energy, high pressing team. And I think Adam hit the nail on the head there. Dummett looks to be the best option at left back, without a shadow of a doubt. He got done relatively easy towards the back end of that game. How on earth is that back 4 going to cope against Bielsa's team and the way they play? Mate, are you worried about this game?
I can only see one winner in this one, and that's Leeds. Look, Leeds were brilliant against West Ham on Sunday. I watched that game. They absolutely tore them apart. Rafinha, what a player, class act. He's much better than anything we've got. He's in a much better version of ASM, isn't he? But Jack Harrison, Click, Dallas, all really good players, all dangerous. I mean, they are still missing Calvin Phillips and Patrick Bamford. That's probably the only positive I can say about this. But personally, I still think we'll get beat. Right now, the way we're playing, especially after the Cambridge and Watford performances, I can't see us beating anybody. The one game I was looking at thinking we would win was the Everton game at the start of next month. And now that one's gone out the window because, look, Rafa was doing such a shite job there. I thought we would beat them because of that, but now he's gone. I think we'll lose that one. Yeah, I'm really afraid, mate. I'm not feeling optimistic at all about anything with the club at the moment. And I just can't see where the next 3 points are going to come from.
Adam, just to bring you in on that, we're going to get into the tune transfer talk a little bit later in the episode, but bringing in a couple of players, 2 or 3 bodies, is that the only way that we reverse what James is saying there and maybe get a result, mate? Or even at that, do you think it's almost a little bit too late? We've kind of had our chances and they've gone by.
Yeah, I think the most likely outcome is that we've already had our chances and staying up is going to be virtually impossible now. That being said, where are the next 3 points coming from? They'll come from somewhere really weird. It'll be a completely unexpected game. I still think back to when we beat Spurs away when Joel Linton scored. We'd lost our first 2 games of the season and everybody was feeling exactly like they're feeling now. And we went up there and beat them 1-0. Football's a weird game. That's why they make you play all the matches, right? We'll get 3 points and it will come from somewhere really unexpected. But just going back to the point about the 5 at the back, I think Leeds is actually a really good situation to play 5 at the back. I think you can play Dummett left centre back and Lewis left wing back, and you can sort of start to nullify some of what Rafinha gives them. What you can't do is do what we did last weekend and leave our left back exposed to a player as good as Rafinha by playing ASM on the left wing or left of midfield. So you've got sort of 2 options where you can go 5 at the back, but still play as true wing backs, almost like a 3-4-3, which is actually what Howe did in his first game when he wasn't there. They played 3-4-3 against Brentford and looked like a much better attacking team for large portions of that game. And I felt like, maybe this is what he wants to do. He wants to play Joel Linton and St. Maximum up next to Wilson, but still have coverage at the back, sort of do do a true 3-4-3. But he's never done that again. I've never seen him play that formation again. So I don't know if they saw something in that game other than the 3 goals we conceded to a team that had lost 5 in a row. That just scared them off doing that. But we're going to have to play that way, I think, in the short term, because what we're doing right now doesn't work. And won't work. I don't know if they want to try and play Wilson and Wood up front together, which I wouldn't have a problem with, because they've both looked so isolated at times. Wood this weekend and Wilson throughout the rest of the season. I just don't know if signing players is going to be the big thing that changes now, particularly as I will talk about this more in a minute, but we are beyond the point now where we're trying to sign our biggest targets. And we're on to trying to sign who's available, which is a massive mind shift on the 19th of January, 2/3 of the way through the window now. We've really only signed, I think, Trippier, who was probably our top right wing back target or right back target. Chris Wood was probably 3rd or 4th, maybe 5th down the list, but he was the one that was available at a most important time. We're moving away from the likes of Botman, Darwin Núñez, the people that were probably our top 2 or 3 targets in each position. So the players we sign between now and the end of the window, which, by the way, probably won't be more than 1 or 2, aren't going to be the ones that were our top targets. They are going to be the ones that become available. I don't know what will happen with Diego Carlos. That seems like one of those ones that won't go away. And maybe we do get him, but we're going to have to pay, 50 million probably, which I'm totally fine with. I don't give a shit. It's not my money. Spend 100 million if you have to. Do what you have to do.
Where is the money, Adam? Why are the penny pinching? Just spend the bloody money. For God's sake, we're supposed to have loads of it.
But yeah, I get the feeling now that the players we sign between now and the end of the window will mostly be about who was available and probably not about who we really wanted to change the team.
Fully agree with that. Fully agree.
Yeah. Just before we get stuck into the next topic, Dad, just you finish us off with Leeds, mate. You're normally quite optimistic about things. How are you feeling about that Leeds game? Do you think we're going to get absolutely annihilated by Bielsa ball, or do you think we've got a chance?
It's a strange one, and I do think it might actually be a strange game. You're talking there, Adam, about a game we might get something out of. Leeds are a team that you don't really know what you're going to get. They lost to West Ham in the Cup. They then beat West Ham the week later. They conceded 7 against Man City and 4 against Arsenal, but did score 3 against Burnley. They do always seem to concede. So I do think we have a chance in terms of going forward and getting something from them. Obviously, the big question is, can we keep them out? Personally, I'm not sure. I think, I was going to say the exact same thing, Adam, about the 5 at the back. Looking at how Leeds play with basically one holding midfielder and everyone else go and knock yourselves out, I think we have to play 5 at the back, mainly because they are a very fast team. And if we are likely to sit deep, as we seem to enjoy doing, then I think that will almost play to our strengths in the loosest possible sense, because Dan James is playing up front for them at the minute in the absence of Bamford. He's a very good player. I've got a lot of time for him, but he's not a centre forward. It's interesting actually. I was thinking about the 3-4-3 against Brentford, and I think the thing that needs tweaking there, especially against this Leeds side, and it does leave us a little bit exposed one-on-one, but is we have to involve ASM. I know he can be a bit of a show pony and he can frustrate and whatever. He is, whether we like it or not, he's the only person who is capable of creating something out of nothing. And that's what we need in a minute. I will say just one more thing on that. If I see one more person say, I never want to see ASM play for us again, I'm going to have such a big tantrum. Pull your heads out your arse.
If we go down, you'll probably get your wish come true, because you will fuck off in a heartbeat if we go with that one, to be fair. Because he's not going to hang around, is he? But
ridiculous statement. He's by far and away our most talented player. So we've got to involve him. He's frustrating. I don't particularly like him, but we've got to get him involved. And for me, the way to get him involved, if we're asking him to press and play wide and whatever, I don't think we see the best of him. And Howe has tried playing him through the middle because he obviously doesn't trust him defensively. What about putting him through the middle with someone else where he has a relative free role? He doesn't have to do too much. And I would say it also would encourage the fullbacks, perhaps in a natural position, Lewis and Trippier, to attack and provide crosses. So for me, I would go like a 5-3-2 almost, and have Again, like the same back five. I don't know if people would prefer Manquillo to Lewis, and Manquillo out of position at left wing back perhaps, but that's a possibility. Have Longstaff, Shelvey, and even Willock as a kind of number 8 player to try and link things, and say to ASM, do you know what, mate? Go left, go right, knock yourself out. At least have someone there.
Do what you want.
So that's how I would go through. I think that's, I was going to say that's our only chance against something from the game, which is an incredibly arrogant thing to say. But what I mean is, I guess, there needs to be a change of system in some way, I think, if we're going to get something out of the game. And I think if we approach it the same as we have done, whether it's 4-2-3-1 or whatever, I just don't see it working out for us. So there's definitely goals in the game for us, but I think it all comes down to whether we can keep a clean sheet. And, you've talked about Carlos there. For me, I don't really think signings are going to make a huge amount of difference at this stage of the game. I know we're going to come to transfers, but we obviously need something. But I think if we're going to get these players in and get these transfers, there also needs to be something else to go with that. We can't play the same system and just plug new players in. It doesn't work like that. There is a bigger systematic issue, in my opinion, beyond the mentality of the players.
Which we're going to come on to right now. But just to remind everybody, we are going to have a fixture focus on the Leeds game. We'll be joined by a Leeds fan who's very pragmatic, typical Leeds fan. He's watched them all his life, so he never gets too carried away. So it's definitely worth watching that one, because you get to live the life of a Leeds fan as well. And they've had worse times than we have, to be fair, over the years. But just a nice segue, Di, as you mentioned there is bigger problems afoot here. So we're going to move into the next category here, which is how's Eddie doing? My little play on words there. We are live on YouTube tonight, guys, so please feel free to join us in the comments below, just like Stu has, before we get stuck into these stats. So none of the players want to run off the ball and be on the striker. It's the same when Wilson plays, in my opinion. The only ones who can do it are Almond and Fraser. Play one of those closest to Wood. That's a very good shout on that, Stu. So we'll pick up on that in a little bit, guys, but just to pull up the next slide that Mark, our stat man, has put together. I hope everybody's sitting comfortably here watching along, because this is going to scare the living shit out of you. Freddy Krueger won't give you as many nightmares as this slide's going to. So we asked Mark to do, Di in particular asked Mark to do an Eddie Howe versus Steve Bruce comparison, as you can see there, just to talk you through this radar in the middle if you guys aren't too sure about it. So Bruce is in the gold and Eddie Howe is in the blue. So it's 8 games for Bruce this season and 9 for Howe. As you can see there, no wins for Bruce, 3 draws, 5 defeats, 1 win for Eddie Howe, as Adam mentioned, against Burnley, 4 draws and 4 defeats. But the most key factors here, and the frightening factors here, is in the radar grid. So the blue is Eddie Howe and the gold is Steve Bruce. Now, as you can see, the interceptions and points are higher in Eddie Howe's favour, as are the shots on target percentage. But the goals against is round about the same. But the worrying thing is that goals for are much higher in the Steve Bruce category, and pass completion and possession is also higher in the Steve Bruce camp here, which I don't think any of us would have even envisaged that whatsoever, as well as passes per 90 minutes. So just leave that up for a little second to digest, guys, and then I'm going to take it off. So James, I'm going to come to you first on that. Are you surprised at that, mate, or what?
That is genuinely frightening. I didn't realize it was that bad, actually, if I'm honest. But look, I haven't seen anything from our performances since Eddie Howe's been at the club to indicate he will keep us up. I think he's been in charge now for 10 games. I think we've talked about before. We've been hammered by Leicester, hammered by Man City, beaten comfortably by Arsenal, Liverpool, lost against Cambridge. Yes, we drew against Man United and beat Burnley, but we dropped points against Norwich, Brentford, and Watford. So that's 7 points out of a possible 27 in the league. Now, if you can't beat Brentford, Norwich, and Watford at home, you might as well just give up. That just isn't good enough. And to be honest, that is the kind of form we were used to under Bruce. Look, the only good performance under Howe has been the Man United game, and we couldn't even hang on to win that. So there is something inherently wrong with these players, with this squad. And I think it is fair that we question the manager now. I fully believe it is right that we do, given our current plight. And I am beginning to doubt him now. If we lose these next 3 games, the season's over, if it isn't already, and we won't come back from that. And I think Eddie Howe probably realises that too. These next 3 games are crucial. And if we do go down, which sadly I believe we will, I think he'll be gone in the summer.
It's a good shout. Di, you were obviously very vocal about this, and you asked Mark to crunch his stat computer, which I hope he's done very well for you there. But that really frightens me as well. And I'm kind of erring on the same side as James here, that I didn't want to write Eddie Howe off so quickly. But when you see those kind of stats, I know stats can be manipulated, but it is quite worrying. And I haven't really seen a new manager bounce either. The games, if you look at them, we'll go into more detail in the second once you and Adam have you say, but they are quite comparable fixture-wise. And did that surprise you seeing that, mate? Or was that something that you were worried about initially?
I mean, it was definitely something I was worried about. I think what I was mainly looking at before you kind of sent that round in advance was the goals for and against. And that was the thing that kind of surprised me most. And then when you actually start thinking about it, it's actually mind-blowing how the things I and probably a lot of us expected from Howe haven't materialized. I expected more goals scored and the cost of that to be more goals conceded. And in actual fact, we've somehow tightened up at the back despite 2 spankings, and we've conceded fewer goals. And I think we've scored 8 goals in the Eddie Howe era. 3 of them were in the same game. He wasn't even there either. I'm not taking that away from him.
Yeah, that's right.
Can he catch COVID again? We might win another game if he catches COVID again.
I want to make one thing clear, because again, I hate the thing of, I'm not going to give breath to the article that was posted in one of our groups today about slagging off Newcastle, and we're looking forward to seeing you at the Den next year.
No, we won't do that. We won't do that.
Get in the sea. But I hate that thing of everyone, Newcastle fans are this, Newcastle fans are that. I want to be very clear. I'm not saying Eddie Howe out. I'm saying we are at a point now where he needs to do something to change it. And when I saw that slide when it first went round, the thing I expected from an Eddie Howe team was a high press in some way, shape or form. And we're doing that less than we did under Steve Bruce. That really, really concerns me. And I worry if we've got the right manager for this rebuild, but at the wrong time. I think if we need someone who's a specialist at keeping us up and nicking shitty wins, and then we can have a rebuild in the summer when we've got more time to do so. Or if he's going to come in now, he needs to be the pragmatic one at this moment in time, realize what he's doing isn't working properly, and then go again in the summer. Because as James rightly says, I don't see it staying up. If we can't get points from the games we've got coming up, the games that have just gone by, it's not going to happen. So I do think he needs to be more pragmatic, and fewer goals conceded, less goals scored. I mean, it is worrying stuff. So I think the big point, I guess, for me is I was expecting some kind of improvement, some kind of step forward. And okay, you can argue that we've had 2 more points. I don't really think that's a huge thing at this stage of the game, but there's a lot of other worrying metrics there. And I think unless he makes a change, it doesn't matter who else comes in for us. I think we're in a lot of trouble. I think that those stats go to show that there is some sort of tactical and mindset change that's needed here. Because, like James said, we are right to question a manager at this point, I think.
Just a quick one, Chris, before you go to Adam. Sorry, just a very quick one. I want to make a point on this. I personally think the only positive thing he's done is improve Joe Linton. Right? That might be slightly controversial. If you look at these 10 games and you think what really the positives from it, Joe Linton, yes, he looks a different player now. I thought he was outstanding against Man United, etc. Defensively, we are still leaking goals left, right, and centre, and there has been no improvement to that defence at all. Mistakes are happening all of the time, and this was something you would think he would have cut out. Yes, there is an argument that this current squad isn't good enough, and I totally get that. But have we really seen a new manager bounce, as you rightly said, Chris? I don't think we have. Personally, I think we made a mistake in not offering the job outright to Gerrard. He would have kept this team up, and he would have improved this defence, but that's a whole other debate.
Well, we'll get into that in another episode, I think. But Adam, it's a good point. I mean, is Eddie Howe's plan wrong, or is his plan right and the players are wrong? Where is this broken, and where does it begin to be repaired, really, mate?
Well, I think only Newcastle could not get a new manager bounce by bringing in a new manager. It's like a new manager bounce is almost guaranteed. I mean, even Claudio Ranieri, I think, won his first 2 games or 2 out of his first 3, and he's lost 7 after that. But only Newcastle could get a new manager and not have a new manager bounce. So, I mean, I think, how's Eddie doing badly? Whose fault is it? it's sort of everybody's fault. It's it's sort of Mike Ashley's fault because the squad is the squad, right? That he inherited. It's sort of Steve Bruce's fault because he's played such negative, depressing football for 2.5 seasons, whatever it is, that it's very hard to unwind that attitude quickly. It's also Eddie Howe's fault. I don't think he's done well in game management, which is a skill that is not easily picked up. Certainly glad I don't have to make those types of decisions, but he has done poorly in games. Does he have a strategy that he's developing? Well, we've had 3 or 4 different formations with the same group of players, the same 12 or 13 players that he's probably used to start games. So if he is developing something, it's not developing very well. Does he get a bit of the benefit of the doubt having inherited such a bad team? Yeah, he does get a bit of a benefit of doubt, but at the end of the day, we need to stay in the Premier League. Will he take the blame if we go down? He'll take quite a lot of the blame. If it was a pie, there'd be plenty of pie for Ashley and for Bruce and for other people. But I think he would take a lot of the blame if we go down. It's not too late for Eddie Howe to turn it around. I'm certainly not hashtagging Howe out or any of that bullshit. But there is clearly a problem in that squad and with what the new management team are doing. It's just not working yet. I keep feeling like we're about to feel it click. Sort of every game. Yeah. There's a little period in every game where it's like, all right, that's going to be who we are, and that's going to click, and that's going to stay. And it just hasn't worked. My bigger fear with Howe and the success or lack of success is not just about sort of what's happening on the pitch. It's when you go into work or you go into training every day and you sort of feel better about having Eddie Howe as your manager. I'm talking about the players now. They show up feeling a bit better about Eddie Howe being their manager. But how long do you stop? How long until you stop listening when you just see the results continuing to be the same? Yeah. You might like some of the ideas. You might get a bit of a bounce from it being a fresher voice, a younger voice. It sounds like they're doing 1 or 2 things at the training ground that might improve the player's experience. But if you're Joe Willock or Jamal Lascelles or even Kieran Trippier, like how long will you just continue to listen to him develop this strategy if on match days it just isn't working? And that happened to Bruce. It certainly felt like everyone just gave up on Bruce. Whether he was telling them things or not, I have no idea. So with Howe, it's sort of a question of, is he telling them the right things and they're not doing it? And that's a big problem. Or is he telling them the wrong things and they are doing them and it's still going wrong, right? So there's going to be this period of time now. Maybe it's 2 games, maybe it's 3 games, where we need to see a dramatic improvement. We need to see it start clicking, or we'll certainly be going down. And my guess is he'll be out in the summer because that's what tends to happen to managers when they go down.
I think sorry, Dave, go on.
It's just further your point as well. I think everyone's, having a go at St. Max. I think if I'm him, I'm thinking, well, you've told me to press and run around like a lunatic. And the only time I'm scoring a goal is when I'm taking the ball off someone, skinning 3 people and sticking it in the back of the net. Screw you. I'm gonna do my own thing. And that's wrong. But, and again, I'm not suggesting that's what's happening. And I reiterate, I don't think this is all Eddie Howe's fault. But at a point, you've got to start to ask the question, as we've said before, he's screaming at people to press and do this and do that in the match, and he's not doing it. So maybe that is why St. Max is thinking, screw you. Because, and again, maybe I'm definitely oversimplifying the situation, but there's something in that, because I was thinking about this today. When was the last time that we scored a goal that we created? Like, not, I'm not saying some sort of stunning team goal that you would see on Soccer AM. I'm just saying where someone played a pass and someone knew that pass was coming and made the run and scored. Probably the Brentford game, one of those goals, one of the cross goals from there. Probably, the Spurs game, we ended up losing, but that first goal that Callum Wilson scored early doors. If you think about a lot of our last goals, that I'm struggling to think of one that we've crafted as a team. The game we won even, okay, Willock's crossed the ball in, I think it was Willock. but the keeper still come out and drop the ball. Yes, it's a good finish. We've not crafted that goal. You know, the Man United goal, the Watford goal, that's a bit of magic from one person. So again, to further to that point is, you know, there is definitely some kind of disconnect there. And I do think it explains a lot of the behavior, if you like, of some of the players.
I think as well, there's something in, I'm not saying for 1 second I think Steve Bruce is a good manager, because he's not. He's a dinosaur. I'll make that abundantly clear. A bacon-loving dinosaur. But I think when you get players like St. Maximin who wants a cuddle, wants a bit of a fuss made over him in terms of, hey, do you know what? You're our man. You just get out there and you do what you think's right, Alan. I think someone like St. Maximin will play better under a manager like Bruce, who will just let him get on with it. Whereas Eddie Howe wants more out of him, as you rightly say, Di. And you're almost in a bit of a conflict between the touchline and the pitch. And if he's your most influential player, you know, it's not working out. He's going to throw his dummy out and say, well, do you know what? Fuck it, I'm just going to do my own thing. Then he goes off and the whole team breaks. And then that's when we'll kind of lose that discipline and lose that shape. And that's when we'll leave ourselves open. So if Eddie Howe's trying to get that team to defend as a unit, he's got to drop St. Maximin, but then he'll come back and bite him, because if he drops St. Maximin, there's nobody to create anything, especially when Wilson isn't there. So short of adding somebody who can do that, I really don't think that Eddie Howe has an option here. Really, he has to find a way to work with this enigma, maverick, whatever you want to call him. I do laugh because I always make fun of people and say that's just a way to say he's not a wanker, coming up with some kind of superlative name, by, you know, all these different descriptive names. But I'm not saying Sir Maximin is a wanker. He's a lovable wanker. But, you know, I can imagine someone like Paul Dummett or Lewis will be like looking at him going, for fuck's sake, come back and do something. Will you help me out? And it's just not the way he plays. We've all played Sunday League with a guy like that before. But I just think that there's a real issue here that maybe Eddie Howe, as clever as he is, articulate and visionary and everything else that he does, you know, with his clipboards and all sorts of stuff, he doesn't quite understand what tools he's got at his disposal. He's trying to get players to do jobs that they can't do. And I think that goes back really to the fact that this squad is so unbalanced, as Adam said before, because of years of just totally neglect and not improving on the quality. So, I mean, the truth is, I don't know what the answers are, lads, really. I mean, you know, James, you tell me otherwise. I think unless you bring in 4 players, what the hell can you do to fix it and potentially try and stay up?
That's the only solution, isn't it? There is no other solution right now. I don't think what Eddie Howe is doing on the training ground is working, and you know we've done that to death tonight. So yeah, what is the alternative? You throw money at the problem, and we are now going to lead us into talking about some potential transfers, which we are absolutely desperate for.
Nice segue, mate. You practiced that. Well done.
That's it.
Very good.
So who do you want to talk? Do you want to go Diego Carlos first? I think we're looking at that.
Yeah.
One.
So Diego Carlos appears to be the name that won't go away, as Adam rightly says. I'll chuck it over Adam there because Adam had a bit to say about the lad before. So Mark smashed up a cracking slide here, as he always does. We love you, Mark, top man. And you can see there that obviously from the season stats, you know, he does look a competent centre half. I've seen some people talk on Twitter about he has a wobble in him and all this kind of stuff. And to which I responded, have you seen Newcastle United's defence? You know, so if he has a wobble in him, Jesus Christ, he'll still be better by far. But Adam, looking at that slide, I think the one thing that stands out to me, mate, is the tackles, 1 out of the total tackles, 26 to 30, mate. Would you be happy to see Carlos come in, mate? Would he fix the problem?
Well, he wouldn't fix a problem on his own, but he would go a long way to fixing a long-standing problem that Newcastle have had. They haven't signed a centre-back since they signed Federico Fernandez on transfer deadline day, I think in 2018. Fabian Schär came in, the summer before that. So they haven't signed a centre-back in a long time. And it's quite clear that really all of our centre-backs have regressed over the last couple of years, particularly Jamal Lascelles, which is a huge issue for the club because he's the club captain. So he's going to be in some ways sort of forced to play until he's clearly replaced. I think Diego Carlos would be a tremendous signing. They're going to have to spend a huge amount of money, obviously break their transfer record in order to get him. But I think the problem with signing a player like Diego Carlos is on his own, he's not going to change the way we play. He might stop a few more goals going in, which, trust me, we need desperately. And frankly, any centre-back would be better than the pair that started at the weekend. But Diego Carlos only really helps us stay up is if he's part of 3 or 4 signings. And I made the point earlier, I think, that at this stage of the window, in the back half of it, getting the players we wanted versus the players that are available is going to be a massive issue now. I think the last 72 hours of the window could be quite spicy. A lot of action could happen in those last couple of days. But, you know, we're going to Leeds in a must-win game at this weekend with Lascelles and Shah as our centre-backs, and that is a massive problem. And we can speak, if you want, we can talk about whether their transfer policy has worked over this window. The jury is still out. I lean on the side of probably not. I think they had, you know, the odds stacked against them, given that they've got no one experienced at the club in doing transfers. Nicky Hammond only lasted 7 or 8 days, so that didn't work out very well. You know, they did a good deal for Kieran Trippier. That was an excellent transfer for all involved. As I said earlier, they overpaid for Chris Wood, but he was what was available at a time where they had to have a striker signed. They had to have a centre-back signed this week. And it's, you know, now Wednesday night. We've got less than 48 hours till the registration cutoff. That's without a work visa, by the way. So even if they signed Carlos now, they wouldn't get him in for Friday's deadline because visas will take too long. Plus COVID restrictions if you're traveling over from Spain, you know, all of those things. So it's desperate times. I would love to see them sign Diego Carlos, though. At this point, I'm not sure it's going to happen.
There's one thing I saw on the slide there, actually, that stands out to me, Di, just to bring you in as well. And there's one thing I think our defenders don't really do a lot of recently, and that's score goals. And he's got 12 goals so far in his career, Carlos. He's obviously a threat from set pieces, and with the likes of Trippier, who can deliver a ball now, maybe that could be an asset, do you think, mate, if we get him in?
Yeah, I think we've got to be realistic here. I think something needs to happen. And Adam's right. If we don't get someone at the back, is that going to change our season? Perhaps not, but it is definitely going to be a big addition, no question, because we need that. We need someone who's more reliable at the back. Sevilla have conceded 12 goals, I think, this season. Have got the best defence in La Liga, which is a fantastic achievement, and he's obviously a big part of that. I actually, going back and looking up some stuff earlier, I realised I actually saw him play for Estoril at the start of his career, completely by accident. I went to watch a Sporting Lisbon game a while ago, and he was playing, as it turned out, when I was kind of doing a bit of research on that, which I thought was a nice coincidence. I would love to give you some thrilling insight into how well he played that day. I was really quite drunk on one Euro.
I was going to say, how many pints did you have?
So, from what I remember, he was the best centre-back I've ever seen. But I think the one thing that I do remember from that day is that Estoril were not a big side, still aren't by any stretch of the imagination, but they did beat Sporting Lisbon that day 3-1. So maybe he was a key part of that. I'm sure, in some part of my drunken mind, I can remember a wonderful performance from him that day. In all seriousness, we need something. And, like Adam said, there's problems, there's visas, there's COVID, there's all sorts of stuff. We need something. And at this stage
I was under the impression this one had been done last night, by the way. And various sources were reporting that personal terms had already been agreed with the player. I believe we were going to triple his salary to what he's currently on. I think we were going to offer him 150,000 a week. And by all means, he'd accept it. But now we are at a point with Sevilla playing hardball, and then, as Adam mentioned before, wanting more like the 40 to 50 million pound mark. And why are we messing about with this? Just pay whatever they want for him. And it's not like we can't afford it. There's 10, 11 days of the window left to go. We've got to bring in a centre-half. A centre-half was our number one target before the window opened. Just give him the money because we are desperate. We need to bring him in.
I think the thing they don't want to get done.
Sorry.
What? Sorry.
Well, yeah, just before you jump in there, Diet, just here's a point on this. The club is caught between a rock and another rock because every club knows how desperate we are. Every club knows that we can afford to pay basically whatever price they want to charge. And every player knows that they can ask us for wages through the roof. So the club is playing this incredibly difficult game. I have some sympathy given their lack of experience that they don't want to set a precedent for every other transfer window that every player we want to sign, we have to pay the Newcastle luxury tax of 50%. However, we're second bottom and we've got 18 games to go or whatever, and we're going to get relegated. If they don't take the hard choice to set that precedent, I would much rather, now again, it's not my money, so I don't give a shit. If it was my money, maybe it would be different. But in my opinion, they've got to worry about the next window when we get there, and the one after that when we get there.
Has to be worth the gamble. Has to be worth the gamble.
Right now, we just have to bite the bullet. And if Sevilla want whatever 50 million quid, we've got to go do that. And by the way, I believe they could have got Sven Botman had they just gone to 45 million, which I think is what
paid the money. Yeah, exactly.
Is what they wanted. So I understand how difficult it is for them, because they don't want to get in a position where every other transfer window there's a 50% Newcastle luxury tax. But right now, that's not going to matter if we get relegated. No. It's going to be irrelevant. So they've got to do what they've got to do.
Yeah, I wrote a piece for the blog just before I bring you in, and I used a sentence in the article where I said, if you're up shit's creek without a paddle, don't start questioning how much the paddle costs. Just buy it and pedal like fuck until you get to safety. And that's basically where they're at, I think, at the minute, Adam, as you more articulately put them myself, that they can't afford to haggle with people now because they are literally on the edge of the cliff and they have to do what they have to do to get off the cliff. And then those windows are completely different because you're a Premier League side. You've got money to spend. You can start the season again. And it isn't what we are right now, which is literally a building on fire looking for an extinguisher. Sorry, Di, you wanted to say your bit, mate. I'll drag you back in now.
No, it's fine. I was basically going to say the same as Adam. I do think the only thing I would disagree is where we've just got to go and pay the money. Yeah, we do. But I do think, I do see it from their perspective in the sense of, let's say, we spend 50 million on this boy, and I'm sure he's going to have a relegation clause. He'll go get next for nothing in the summer. I know that's not our problem because he could keep us up. But I do see it from their side equally. Like, I think, the outward facing opinion of them, if you like, the pride that they possess in terms of being this very wealthy, they're not going to get done over by anyone, be it on, in football transfers or in, any other political argument we could was a start. But I think that is actually a really valid part of this. Unfortunately, I agree with you. They should just go and buy it. If I had 300 and something billion, I would not be haggling over 5 million. But there's probably a reason that they have 300 something billion and I don't. So, who am I to question their methods?
That's a good point. So just moving on from Carlos, which looks like it could be a goer, to a couple of other names. I'm going to give you the ridiculous first, James. Eden Hazard. He doesn't like bridges, apparently, mate. Tell me about that fat little Belgian bastard.
He has put the beef on in recent months, hasn't he?
I thought he would have loved the Gregs. I thought he would have loved the Gregs, Eden Hazard. I think he's he hasn't tried it yet.
Oh, there is no way in hell we're going to get Eden Hazard. It's absolutely crazy to even consider that one. One I will mention very quickly, which I think is a lot more realistic, potentially, is Duvan Zapata. This would be a loan move. He's a big physical unit, quick, can score goals. He's exactly what we need. Good in the air. He's an upgrade on Chris Wood. So, I'm not sure the two could play together, but who knows? Has done it at international level also, scored a few goals for Colombia over the years and playing in a very good Atlanta side right now, but he can't get in their team at the moment as he's behind Luis Muriel as first choice. So I think this one is a very, very big potential to partner. I can see this one happening because the player needs to get out of the club and we've got the money to pay the wages. But I think we need another either a centre forward or possibly an attacking player. I think Jesse Lingard's been mentioned as well, hasn't he? I don't think this one will happen. I don't think he'll want to come and play in a relegation battle. He's too good for that. The issue with this one, just very quickly, his contract runs out in the summer and he basically will go anywhere he wants for free then. It's going to be West Ham, as we all know, and they'll be in Europe next season. Yes, I would love to sign him. He'd be a brilliant addition, but I don't think he'll come because realistically, what has he got to gain from potentially getting relegated? It would be different if the World Cup this year was in the summer, as I know he's desperate to get back in that England squad. So if it had been the summer, he probably would have came. But with it being in December in Qatar, I just think he'll wait it out another few months and then he'll be on his way to West Ham at the end of the season.
So, Adam, on the Lingard one, to bring you in, mate, there was talk that Manchester United didn't want to sell to a European Champions League chasing rival. And obviously, West Ham and Spurs would be that. So, are you on the same side as James? Do you think there's no chance Lingard's going to dance his way into the tie, mate, or do you think you might have a little jig at St James's Park?
Well, anything's possible. So I can't say for sure that we won't sign him. The thing about Jesse Lingard, that worries me a little bit is it's a little bit of a luxury signing, and I don't mean that like he'd be bad for the team. I just think that like I don't know how signing Jesse Lingard sort of dynamically changes our prospects of staying up. And by the way, the same goes for like Todd Cantwell, which I'm already predicting transfer deadline day we're going to sign Todd Cantwell out of pure desperation. I just don't know what they do necessarily to fix any of the big problems. I mean, They'll create a little bit more. Jesse Lingard can score a goal or two. I just don't know whether he's up for the scrap. And at the end of the day, that's sort of where we are now. We need scrappers. We need someone to come in and sort of change the mentality of the group. The other problem with Lingard is not only will he cost a lot of money if they're going to buy him, but his wages are going to be off the map, right? And that worries me a little bit about sort of Carlos as well. If we are going to triple or quadruple this guy's salary, does that affect the group? Does that affect the squad if suddenly, someone's earning twice as much as anybody else? So it's a really shitty situation to be in. Just for me, Lingard's someone you buy if you've already covered all of the other problems, and we've got so many other problems. I'm just not sure. I don't want us to sign someone for the sake of signing someone, and Lingard feels a little bit like that to me, unless he's the linchpin in Eddie's master plan. And that's why we haven't seen the best of Eddie Howe's team yet, because he hasn't got Jesse Lingard. I'm not sure how that works myself, but maybe the two go hand in hand. We're not seeing the way Eddie wants to play because he's not got someone in his squad that can do whatever Jesse can do at number 10 or number 11. So maybe that's it. Maybe that's what we're not seeing. But I struggle to see it for myself.
Well, there's plenty of parties going on at number 10, Adam. So Jesse Lingard would look all right there dancing away, wouldn't he? So, Di, now you've stopped laughing, mate. I'll bring you out of this one. So we'll finish up with two names. One is exactly the problem that Adam's just described eloquently there, is Dele Alli. No for me, 100%. And the other one is your mate, Rambo himself, Aaron Ramsey, who apparently has declined an option to come to Newcastle and pissed off Juventus in the process, mate. So take us home with those two, mate, and let me know what you think about those two as targets.
I've got to be honest with you. I do think Ali would be an upgrade. At the end of the day, we need someone for 6 months to keep us up. At this stage of the game, is he worth a gamble? Probably, because what's the alternative? Shelvey, do me a favor. So I don't. For me, I wouldn't be against it. I wouldn't buy him. He certainly wouldn't be at the top of my Christmas card list. But I would still, at this stage of the game, I think it's worth a punt. I think Ramsey, I think I said this last time we talked about it. I don't think he'll come. I think he will end up not moving at all. He's got COVID. There's a few other obstacles in place. I think his dream move is probably somewhere in London, because I think
Crystal Palace have said, haven't they? That's been the big link, I think.
Yeah, but I think again, are they going to pay 150 grand? He was on 500. Well, after tax, 400 grand a week.
Crazy, that, isn't it?
He's mental, isn't it?
Palace aren't going to pay him 150 grand, 200 grand a week. That's not happening. So I don't see that happening unless they break the bank or he takes a huge pay cut. So my 10 pence worth is, I think it will either transpire. You're talking about Cantwell being our deadline day signing. I actually think if Ramsey goes anywhere, it will be us purely for the wages situation. And I do think that might be our last moment deal. I think the thing for me is, yes, we probably need someone in every other position if we wanted to. And it's easy for us to say, we don't need this person without that person. And Yes, we need 5 more players. I don't think we can disagree there. Like Tim is saying there, Lingard would make a massive difference, goals and assists. Of course.
I think he would as well. Yeah.
I don't think we can argue that. I think there is an element that there's no point having him unless someone like Wirtz, who we've got, is going to score us the goals. So then does that negate the point of signing him? I don't know. It's kind of a weird circle. I think the thing that would make a huge difference and would make it a big change, even if we didn't get anyone else, would be some sort of box-to-box type midfielder. I know you're a big fan of Bissouma, Chris, and I'm not suggesting that's going to happen, but we need that kind of player, because we need someone to grab a game by the balls and be proactive and drag us at the pitch. And Joe Linton's been a revelation. It's because we've worked out by accident that he can play midfield. He's not.
How long will that last, though? How long will that last?
That's what I'm saying. That's not a realistic long-term solution, is it? This can't last forever. He runs around a lot. He's very physical. He hasn't done a huge amount in that position in terms of contributing to us scoring goals, which is still what I think he should be there for. I'm not having a go at the lad. I think he's done really, really well, and he's definitely made a difference to our team. But those kind of performances aren't keeping us up, because he just runs around a lot. He sometimes, by trying to cover other people, leaves holes that other people need to plug, and it just becomes, again, a vicious circle, and we just start, circling the drain a bit, which is what I fear is happening now. So for me, that big box-to-box type player, a goal-scorer midfielder, what a novelty. That is the kind of person we need, I think. Obviously, I'd love Ramsey to come in, and I could give you a selection of Welsh options if you wanted me. Ethan Ampadu is another one I think I would have in a heartbeat to stay true to my roots and always bring up a Welsh player on this pod. So I would take him, because he can play centre half or he can play holding midfielder. He's a bit of a bastard. He's got a great pass about him. I appreciate. Is he going to leave Venice to come and play in Newcastle for 6 months? Probably not. But the point is, there are players out there in those positions we need. Yes, Lingard would be great. I would take Ali. Yes, Ramsey would be amazing. But I still don't think it ultimately solves the problem, like Adam said, unless we get all of those other pieces as well, which is a huge ask, I guess.
It's certainly going to be a massive 2 weeks, lads, for the transfer window. But that's pretty much wrapped up for tonight's episode of Evermore. Thank you so much, everyone who joined us in the comments. Please remember to like and click subscribe. We'll be back next week with another episode of Evermore with the lads, hopefully off the back of a win against Leeds. Me and Mark will be back on Thursday with a fixture focus with a Leeds fan who, weirdly enough, has actually given us more of a chance than probably us four are on this podcast, which is very strange. So make sure you tune in for that, guys. But until then, let's all just continue supporting that team we'll call United and hope to bloody Christ we get a result. Okay, lads, have a good one. See you later.
See you, lads. Take care.